Did you know that there are two different types of content that we use for business marketing? There's the short form content and long form content. Now, short form is traditionally the really quick, high engagement, easily consumable, and often easier or shorter to create. Things like Reels, YouTube Shorts, and your social media posts that are here today, gone tomorrow. So they're really quick to consume, but also quick to disappear. And then you've got the long form or long-term content, which traditionally are more things like blogs, YouTube videos, podcast episodes. And there's another form of long-term content that a lot of businesses forget about, or business owners forget that exists, and has just as much leverage, credibility, and authority building power. In fact, some might even argue it potentially has even more because you have a credible third party who is involved in doing it. Today's episode, we are talking about awards as a strategy for gaining more visibility, credibility, and actually giving you some content that you can leverage for the long term, not just while the awards are on, but when you are involved in awards, this can last for years, especially when you are a winner, of course. So today we're talking about why awards are a really smart strategy to use to help you go from being the world's best kept secret into being a credible authority in your space. And I'm bringing on an awards specialist, somebody who's very involved in the awards industry, to share with us all about it and talk about what we need to know about awards so that you know which ones you should enter, why you should enter them, how to pick and choose the right ones, and how to avoid the biggest mistakes that people make when entering awards. So stay tuned, that's coming right up. Welcome back to another episode of She's a Business Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, a marketing strategist, business coach, mother of two, and somebody who is really passionate about seeing more women find freedom, flexibility in their life, financial security, and actually fulfillment from having their own business that not only is successful in supporting them and their lifestyle, but actually helps them to leverage their highest potential. So you know what I mean when you've been one of those people that feels like you're really hamstrung in the standard workplace. There's so much more that you could do, offer, and give. And usually you've gone into business as a coach, as a consultant, to offer your expertise to others, but maybe you're still feeling really unseen. You're feeling invisible, overlooked, because there's just so many others out there. And I help you to step into a place where I call it a category of your own. So finding that unique angle, your own unique blend of expertise, the thing that you do really well that others potentially don't do the same way you do. So creating a category of one, and obviously the offer that aligns perfectly with it, so that when you attract in those prospects who are looking for someone to help them with exactly the problem you solve, there is a really easy yes offer right there, ready for them to take that next step forward to working with you. Now, I created this podcast to help leverage and raise women's voices, women in business around the world. So you're going to hear real and raw stories from people just like you. We share strategies, we share tips, we share what's worked in all aspects of business, but we also cover our health as women in our midlife and as entrepreneurs, often as parents as well, wellness, finances, spirituality, energetics. We cover everything that goes into you being a success in your own business. So this podcast is made by women for women, and it is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration. Today, I'm introducing you to a really amazing entrepreneur. I have known about Lauren for many, many years now, heard her name around, and had the pleasure of meeting her, and we discovered we actually are neighbours. We live in basically the same suburb on the Sunshine Coast and never actually bumped into each other face to face before. So that was really, really fun. But Lauren Clemett is the head of the Audacious Agency, which is a premier profile building and award writing specialist company. So they actually specialize in award writing and in awards programs and really helping you to leverage awards as a strategy. So she's a great person to have on here to talk about awards because she has over 3 decades of personal branding experience, is often a sought after keynote speaker on the topic of branding and how you're putting yourself out there, which obviously falls straight into how you're presenting in an awards submission. So Lauren empowers business owners and entrepreneurs to build their own powerful personal brands. As the brand navigator, Lauren shares her insights on what makes a really great award submission, what are the key mistakes to avoid, and even, the question of, are you ready? Should you be entering awards for your business? We touch on all of those things, and she shares some really great stories as well. So stay with us. I'm about to press play and introduce you to Lauren. All right. Hello. I'm here in the studio with Lauren Clemett, who is the co-founder of the Audacious Agency. Welcome, Lauren. So good to have you here.
Thanks so much, Jessica. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. And I think, when we were chatting before we jumped on about this topic, how to be bold, audacious, this is such great timing. I think this year, I'm not sure how much you're into the energetic space, but I personally am a bit of a newbie in that whole realm. But people are saying the year of the fire horse, this is the year to make big, bold moves, and we're all going to be feeling it. And I'm like, what a perfect time to talk about this.
Yes, it started off a bit crazy this year, hasn't it? It was everyone started off with, we shedded stuff from last year, we shedded the past, now we're ready to go. And this year's taken off with a bang and a wallop. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, and as much as you might think that's all, baloney and phooey, I think just look around at how many people are making huge changes and shifts, and they've, shut things down. They're changing their business. People are pivoting everywhere, like really leaning into, I guess, where they're being drawn to, like what they're feeling this urge to make a move, to get out of that place that they were in last year, and make some big changes. And I think it's no coincidence that we're seeing that so widespread. It's interesting to kind of watch the rollout of it, right? Because they were kind of the first people who were making moves, and now I feel like the momentum's building, and everybody's kind of tuning into that energy. But before we talk about this, can you tell us a bit about, who you are, what you do at the Audacious Agency? How did we even come to be talking about this topic?
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I came to this topic because I found your amazing podcast, and I just think you do an amazing job, and you interview some incredible people. So I'm very humbled to be on your podcast as one of your guests, Jessica. As you can tell from the accent, I'm from New Zealand, and I was brought up there by 2 fabulous parents who were 10-pound poms. So they were basically funded to move from the south of England across to the other side of the world to start afresh with no family, no friends, no nothing. My dad was an engineering draftsman and my mother was a florist, so both very creative types. And They lived in Auckland and Devonport at the naval base there where my dad worked. And it was just all a completely new culture. I'm so admired of what they, and enamored with what they did, going all that way in the 60s where you couldn't just change your mind, and jump on a plane or pick up the telephone and talk to somebody. That was it. You were gone. A telegram, took 6 weeks to get home and so on, or a letter or whatever. But my mum actually wrote down on a piece of paper her address because she couldn't say it properly, and she used to just show it to people. And they said, where do you live? I live here. It's written, because it was Wakakura Crescent off of Ngātaringa Road. And it's like, how could you live in such?
Oh my goodness!
The Maori language is so strong, and people just don't know what to say. So I grew up in New Zealand. I grew up at a YMCA camp in the end in Hunu in South Auckland. I spent most of my formative years there, and I was told at about age of 8 that I had word blindness, and I would never be able to read or write properly. and I wouldn't be able to learn like the other children did. And it was actually a very cool thing to say to me. That sounds like a horrible thing for a teacher to say, but he knew me. He knew that whatever you said I couldn't do, I was going to damn well prove him wrong. And so he encouraged me
Mhm.
to learn how to read. It was dyslexia, of course. He found books that I loved. I fell in love with The Land of Narnia, and read all
Yeah.
those books and really taught
Mm.
myself how to read and so on. But I was always very creative. My room was covered with mobiles and paintings and 3D drawings and all sorts of things and whatever I could scrounge to put stuff together. And I was encouraged to be very creative. And I ended up training as a graphic designer. Went to England and studied and came back to New Zealand and ran departments and worked for big advertising agencies as a production manager, stepped up into brand management. This is all before the age of the internet. Eventually made my way as a brand manager working for corporate and then started my own agencies as well. So cool journey, being involved in all of those
Yeah.
amazing experiences. Moved to Australia in 2010 and decided to
Mhm.
get out of agency land because it was really a young person's game. And I had a young daughter at the time. And I thought, I really need to be more of a mum now. What do I do? And I looked at personal branding. And personal branding back in 2010 was very new. No one really knew what it was. They all
Mm.
thought it was for people in corporate who were trying to go up the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
But I was seeing a huge number of people coming out of the professional space, working in corporate, sick of that, environment, wanting to start
Yeah.
businesses. And there was very low barrier to entry. So you could become a real estate agent relatively quickly. You could become a business broker or a business
Yeah.
advisor or a coach or an accountant quite quickly, and start your own business. The trouble was they didn't have a marketing department. They didn't know how to promote and
Yeah.
market themselves. So they were coming to me and asking me for help. So I created an entire process around how to position yourself as a industry leading expert. And it was with a business called the Ultimate Business Propeller. It was a consultancy. I had books and courses and programs and so on. And I entered my first award in 2016, which was the Stevie Awards, the Asia Pacific Stevie Awards. And I entered it for my brand management and brand creation process for personal branding. And I won a silver. Up against
Wow.
some
Well
really
done.
big agencies. So I
Mm.
was over the moon and I went, oh, there's something in this. So I co-founded
Yeah.
the Audacious Agency with a PR person and we grew the agency. We've won Telstra Awards, Australian Small Business Champion Awards. We've won lots, I think it's 6 Grand Stevie Awards with the Stevies, just lots and lots of awards. She then resigned in 2024 and I took a look at the business and went, oh, maybe I can do it on my own. Let's just see. So I took over as the CEO and here we are.
Oh,
And we
wow.
really are steaming on ahead. We've got amazing clients, all of them professional service providers who
Yeah.
are like the world's best kept secret, but they're sick of being the world's best kept secret and they want to get out there and get seen and noticed. So we're doing amazing things with incredible people at the moment and just loving seeing their whole business move and, for them to be industry recognized leaders is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible. So, wow, there was a lot in that. I was like, oh, I relate to so much of it. I think my grandparents actually were like your parents and came out to New Zealand in the early 50s. So you can imagine they came on a ship with my dad when he was 2.
Yeah.
And I think they got given land because my granddad was in the Royal Marines and they said, here you go, here's some land in New Zealand. Off you go, and literally, like, no job, no money. I don't know. They probably had a last pay packet from the Navy or whatever it was, and that was it. And they tell stories of him getting work as a painter. Like it wasn't like he was a cook, but he was just, this is something I can do to earn some money. And he would walk with the ladder and the paint buckets. And they lived in Auckland as well. And I actually grew up really down the road from Devonport, so very very familiar there. And it's interesting that you talk about personal branding and, that journey because like you, I've been in marketing well long before the internet was, social media, definitely. I mean, we were online and I was one of the early people doing digital marketing back when it was actually a thing. You had one person in a company who was the digital marketing person. And, I did websites and stuff like that. And it was always like, oh, I'm the tech savvy person in the team. It was very funny. And now it's, everything we do is digital marketing. It's like, it's not even really a thing. It's just marketing now.
Yeah. We used to call you the propeller head. There was a whole room of them at Starchies, and it was a whole floor. Just this whole floor opened up with all these computers with the propeller heads up there, and we didn't know what they did, but we just sort of ignored them and let them do their own thing. It was quite funny.
I know. It's sort of like we opened up this whole new language of
Mm.
things that no one knew. And, I think you made a really good point, though, personal branding. And, I feel like this is still a really relevant conversation, even now in 2026,
Mm.
when you're coming out of an environment where you've been in a corporate, you've been a professional, you've been an employee of a business brand, and then now you're starting your own business. There's a chasm, I'll call it. Maybe there's not really a gap, a chasm between the business brand and then what you're creating as your own business brand. And I really feel like this is irrelevant whether you're calling the business your own name, like I do, or a name like you have, the Audacious Agency. There's a lot of personal branding strategy that goes into this, because the reason why someone's going to choose your business and sign up with you is often or not you, right?
Yeah.
And a lot about that uniqueness. And I'm not sure your thoughts on this. Obviously you've been in the circles a long time as well, and worked in the UK. But I always look at Virgin and Richard Branson as maybe like the first, what I would call, that I was aware of anyway, the first personal brand business, because he made Virgin. Like, people would go to the Virgin brand and companies because they were like, yes, I like what he's about. I like this thing. And he, and then that to me is always the best example of it. Like, people went Virgin because of Richard Branson, and because of who he was as a person and what he stood for.
Oh, 100%. I love that you've considered him, because I'm the same. And I was actually working in England when he was really starting to launch Virgin back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And Tubular Bells was out, and his record labels were going off, and then the airlines, and then the trains, and then he's the absolute example of someone who's created what I'd call an umbrella brand. So there's the Virgin brand with him really as the personality that you expect, that sort of attitude from his team, regardless of whether you're going to jump on his planes or his trains or to his health clubs or whatever. And yet he's quite humble and, dyslexic, and the first one to say he doesn't know what he's doing, and he just says, trial and error and keep going and go for it and so on. I actually spoke to him once, which is hilarious. I was working in a real estate agent in England, in Bournemouth, and I really knew nothing about real estate, and I was selling commercial property. And I knew Noel Edmonds from the TV, and he was one of the contacts that I had. He used to run Noel Edmonds' radio show and on TV with Mr. Blobby and stuff. We knew him, right? So when all this list of people I could call about this manor house that I had for sale came up, I sort of expected I wouldn't talk to him. I'd be talking to his EA or whatever. And we had this conversation, and she asked for the information and I sent it off. But I didn't know who Richard Branson was. I hadn't heard the name back then. I mean, I'm talking really early 90s.
Yeah.
And so I just picked up the phone and I rang. And that was in the day where he used to answer the phone. He was known as Mr. Yes, because he never said no to anybody. And I basically, in my good old New Zealand way, rang the number and said, can I speak to Richard, please? Not Richard Branson or Mr. Branson. Can I speak to Richard? Yeah, sure. And I was put straight through, because it sounded like I knew him, because I just used his first name. And he picked up the phone, and I had this conversation with him about this manor house and whether he could use it for a recording studio or, getaways or just a private retreat or whatever else. And we're having this conversation, and he says, look, I don't normally deal with the property side of things. I've got someone who does that. Can I put you onto them? And I said, sure. And he put me through. And my boss is sitting in the office next to me just with her mouth open going, what are you doing? Looking to Richard Branson. Who's Richard Branson? So I then, found out who he was. There was no Googling back then. You couldn't just Google and find who somebody was. So,
Incredible. That's so funny. But, like you say, it is just like that vibe, what he had about him is so obvious. And no matter which of those brands, they have managed to keep that really strong. And you really do feel like you're dealing with a personality. Like it was like the first business brand. I'm like, this business has personality. It actually has a human element to it, even though it's not his name, it's not his face. It was kind of like that strange mix. But bringing it really into the personal brand space now, I mean, it's got to that point where the more you can bring that human element in, obviously, the better it is. And you're talking now, your focus being on awards and actually really getting out of that place where you're just one of the many, 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 many thousands, and claiming some of that authority and really getting known. So people know about awards. Obviously, we know about them. We know they exist. What do you think is the reason why most people don't actually think that it's something they could do, or that it's not an option for them yet? Like, what are the conversations that you're having with people?
Great question. Thanks, Jessica. Very quickly on the personal branding side of things, I think it's even more important now because, as you say, people do business with people. And you're quite right with, I think Richard Branson was the first time we'd ever seen a founder or a CEO be this big personality that was prepared to be out there. Up until then, they'd always been this suit and tie bloke who maybe had a picture on the wall in the office and was listed on the annual report, and you didn't really get to know who they were. And there were a lot of people heading up big companies and you just didn't know who they were. And then all of a sudden there was Bill Gates and there was, Steve Jobs, and all of a sudden there were these other personalities coming out there and people started to go, well, maybe I could do that. And it really is a question of how do you get out from behind the desk so that you can then create this, as you said, this interface with, it feels like I'm dealing with Richard Branson's company because of the way that he leads it and his whole attitude and his methodology, look after your people and they'll look after your customers. That's his whole approach. He doesn't really focus on customer service. He just goes, look, I'll look after my people and they'll know what to do because they're being well looked after. So I think it's that idea of creating something that's bigger than yourself, but by having the guts and being bold and brave to be able to be the face of the brand, because it is a trust thing. And with so much fake stuff out there, especially with AI at the moment, you can really devalue your trust currency. And I'm playing with AI at the moment. There's some AI creations that look like me and sound like me. She's got brown eyes instead of blue eyes, but she's out there. And, I'm playing around with this stuff because it's interesting. But I don't think it will ever replace that ability like we have to have these conversations that go off on tangents and we end up talking about all sorts of things and creating relationships with each other rather than just that transactional, hey, buy my stuff. And go to my website and buy my services. And I think the awards has got that ability to bridge that gap as well, because it's a little bit like a really, really good testimonial. It's third-party endorsement that you're seeing that you are credible and you can actually, there's evidence that you can actually deliver. And with awards, it's even better than a testimonial because it's not just a Joe Blow customer. This is awards coming from a recognised, like the Stevie Awards or the Telstra Awards or the Globee Awards or some of those big awards that are out there. And all of a sudden, you've got branding by association. So you're lifting your brand up to that level. And also, when you enter awards, you're lifting your brand up to the level where all of a sudden you're being listed alongside IBM, alongside TripAdvisor, alongside Accenture, all these big agencies that your brand is being listed up against. Doesn't matter how big or small you are. You're now being seen as one of the women who came to the Stevie Awards for Women in Business with us in New York last year said it felt like running with thoroughbreds. It's that idea that now I'm in the big game. I'm up there with those people. So I think the big thing that holds people back really is imposter syndrome. It is that feeling that I'm not there yet. I'm not ready to be compared to IBM. I'm not ready to be judged amongst that. And also secondary to that is just a little bit of lack of knowledge. That, yes, when I talk awards, it doesn't mean you have to go straight in and enter a Telstra award. Because the Telstra Awards, they want financials, they have categories specific around impacts. So that could either be environmental or community or science or women or growth. You have to have had an impact. So if you're a startup and you don't have any actual tangible, results yet, it's a little bit pointless going for Telstra. But with all the other awards, and I'm talking Globee, Stevie's, Osmompreneur, et cetera, there are startup categories. There are thought leadership categories. There are, new product, new service categories. And we've seen people win international awards for products and services that haven't even launched yet. So they've won just for the concept. As long as you position it in such a way that you can quite clearly demonstrate that there's a definite impact that you could have with this concept and the change it could create, you get a great opportunity to become an award winner even before you launch. So there's there's awards for everything. We've got about 370 different awards programs on our records.
Oh my goodness.
Adding to them daily. There's an award for trench digging. So if you dig trenches, you can go for it. Do you know what I mean? This is the thing I think people don't understand, that there is so much that you are actually eligible for.
Yes.
And it really is a question of not going, oh, I don't think I've done enough. It's just, well, I wonder what I could win would be a better way of thinking about it.
Yeah. Now, that kind of really beautifully brings me to my next question, because I used to, as head of marketing communications, we used to run the awards, in-house awards, like what we were going to enter for various companies that I've worked for in the past. And there, as you say, there are many that are there. And it takes a lot of work, actually. You know, maybe that's why you exist, right? To help people with the actual work of entering them, because there's no point really entering an award if you're not going to put the effort in to do a good job on your application, because it does take time and effort, and you want to be entering it with a really good chance of winning. But my question being, you know, and I'm just going to say this in a really blunt way, and I know that you're going to give me a blunt answer because you're that kind of person, but, you know, like, there are awards and then there are awards, and it feels like there are some that are just created as literally just a money-making thing, that you've got no idea what this awards program is. Like, it has zero, like, you've got the Telstra, which is a credible business brand. They've been around for a while. You know, as you say, it takes a lot to win one of those awards. So that has serious weight in it when you have that award. But there are other ones, you know, what's the real value of getting an award of some random awards program that you have never heard of before? You've paid to enter. It's almost like, is this just a kind of different way of doing paid advertising?
Yeah, I love it. Great question. Look, any advertising is paid in some way, either in your time or in entry fees or leveraging it or whatever else. So it's going to take some sort of investment. You know that with what happens with marketing. You're going to have to, you know, have a goal. You're going to have to manage, you know, map it all out, and you're going to have to leverage it. Because even if, like, for example, you got some free media coverage and you got interviewed on TV and so on, and you know, managed to pitch something about what's going on in the world right now, and you got on TV, it's only going to be up there for a short time. You're still going to have to do something with that, you know. So there is really no such thing as free. You still have to do the work and put the effort in. When it comes to choosing the right ones, I 100% agree with you. You want to go with the ones where there's an actual process on a regular basis. And I just posted about it yesterday. I get emails constantly. Congratulations, you are the winner of the, you know, blonde-haired 50+ CEOs in Australia who talk about. Do you know what I mean? And it's like,
yes. And all you have to do is pay this money for a media pack.
It's only $2,500, and you know, and I never entered. I wasn't nominated for them. There's no process. There's no judging. I've won. So those are big red flags, right? And you do the same with anyone who was offering you any media or whatever else, where you don't actually have to turn up. Oh, we'll make it look like you, and so on. You'd question it. Look, sometimes, and I have paid in the past to be on the cover of magazines, but again, same thing. It was paid marketing for a certain promotion, and I've leveraged it for a certain thing. So there's always, you know, different. I when I kickstarted my speaking business, I only had images of me in the media with different hair, of a different age, and I went, right, I need some coverage. I need to, you know, restock my media experience and with that. So there's always a place and time, but when it comes to awards, you really can't leverage something that you haven't actually entered and hasn't been judged. It's just, hey, a consolation prize or a pay to play. On saying that, though, yes, I agree with you. Telstra Awards, they're free to enter, but it takes, oh my goodness, it's, I think, 4 stages. You're looking at 6 essays of 1,500 words, plus video, plus interviews, plus. There's a huge amount of effort that goes into those. And then you've got to attend them and so on, and they're great. And of course, the Telstras get a lot out of it, remember? Everyone wants to be
course.
called a Telstra winner, and then their
Yeah.
brand is all over everything. So it's leveling up, best in business, best in Australia. It goes both ways. I have gone
Yes.
through the whole way through the Telstra process as a winner, and it's an extraordinary process. It's great for your business, and the networking is amazing. But yes, you still have to leverage it. Australian Small Business Champion Awards have been around forever. They're again free to enter. They're 10 really good questions. And they are properly judged, lots of integrity with those ones, but still, you're still going to pay to go along to the awards event. And do you know what I mean? Leverage it, stand on the red carpet, get your videos, get your photographs, and so on. The ones that have entry fees, and there's a lot of those, just don't put yourself off by the entry fee. If you have to just pay and you're in, that's different. The ones that got entry fees tend to give you something for that. So, for example, with the Stevie Awards, you pay an entry fee. They also have free categories, but I do suggest if you're going to enter a free category, you do a paid one as well, because there's lots of competition in the free ones. You still have to submit an entry. You still have to put a support document in. You still have to, go through the process. For that, you can use the logos. You can get in their database and put newsletters up. You can go on their social media platforms. They shine the light and spotlight lots of winners all of the time. So you've got lots of coverage. You get a medal or a trophy. You've just got to pay for shipping of that if you don't go to the awards. But do you know what I mean? You're definitely going to get something out of it. So yes, there are definitely people who run awards for profit, and some of them do them as part of a community. I'd be a little bit more wary of those because it does tend to be, now how do I say this? There's a lot of unconscious bias. So it does often be the case that a community member wins those awards rather than someone who's not part of your community. So just, have a look around, do your research, and just ask lots of questions.
Yeah. So when you're doing your research, what would you say? Just let's pick out 3 things that you're going to look for to go like, okay, this is a good fit for me. What would be your top 3 criteria?
Yeah, okay. So first, in terms of fit, you're looking at an award that's going to help you leverage and raise up your profile. So if you're going to be if you're already looking at their website going, oh, I don't know, they look a bit shonky, then you're not going to be comfortable leveraging that and talking about it. Whereas if you look at their website and you go, wow, they've got lots of winners on there. They've got IBM, they've got, Google, they've got all these big brands as part of them, then chances are, you're going to be in good company. So you're looking for that, but also you're looking at so you've got industry awards. So if you're in real estate, they have their own awards. If you're in finance, they have accounting awards, they've got marketing awards and so on. So if you want to be known really well in your industry, you'd look inside your industry awards and go for which categories you could, again, level up with. Then you've got business awards, which are more broadly broken down into different categories, and they could be based on how long you've been established for. They could be based on your industry. And then you've got specialist awards. So you've got things like thought leadership, podcasts, authors awards, speakers awards, and so on. So there's also those ones out there as well that you can leverage. So you really need to look at why you're entering them. So what's the reputation that you want? Do you want to be known as an entrepreneur or an innovator or a tech genius or a startup or a new kid off the block or a maverick? What do you really want to be known as? So go looking for those, and then which ones are going to be the easiest for you to leverage so that people look at them and go, oh, they must be pretty good, because you're associated with that brand. And don't always let the price of entering put you off. If you can leverage it for the next, look at Stephen Bradbury. He won an Olympic gold medal for basically not falling over 20 years ago. Yeah. And he still talks about last man standing. He's still being booked to speak on stages, and he's got an amazing business and so on. He absolutely deserved the medal he has, but he's still leveraging it 20 years later.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the nail on the head, really, because a lot of people look at that cost and think that's just an expense, but actually it's an investment that you have to judge, well, what is the real ROI going to be from this investment, and how am I going to see that play out? So I love what you said with those criteria. You're really thinking like, who do I want to be known as? And it's not just today, think, what is that space that I'm really trying to occupy and want to be known as for not just now, but for the next few years in the future, so that that award can be leveraged. And by leverage, I know that you and I both know exactly what that means, but maybe for people who haven't come from a marketing background, what are the kind of just top ways that people really leverage their awards, would you say?
Yeah, great question, Jessica. And yeah, marketers do understand it because they'll take one piece of content and then repurpose it all over the place. One of the big things we find, about 90% of people who enter awards wait. So they hit submit. They spend all that time and effort. They've crafted their amazing entry. They've created a support document. They've checked it. They've read through it. It's taken them, 3 days to do it and all the rest of it. They've got all the information, all the evidence there. They hit submit and then they go and forget about it and think, oh, I'll wait and see if I win. What we find is that if you can start leveraging it from the minute you submit it, so the minute you hit that submit button, the first thing you should be going out there with is, hey, I've entered. I've put myself into these. I've nominated myself because of what my team has done, or because of this innovation, or because of the impact that we're having and how we want to, do more of that. It's a great opportunity as well to thank your team, your customers, your supporters, the people who've been around you. Chances are, if you've had to go and get some case studies or some testimonials, they already know that you're entering because you've told them, hey, I'm entering. Would you mind, doing a quick testimonial for me? So you're really just thankful to the people who've supported you and surrounded you. And it's a great way to take people along on the journey with you. So definitely doing that on social media. Send it out as an email out to your database saying, hey, we're really proud of the fact that, we're in these awards. And you might just drop in a couple of those success stories in there, and how you've done amazing things. Not necessarily, huge sales or massive conversion. It could just be, we overcame a challenge and we're still here, or we rebranded, or we repositioned ourselves, or some of those really personal stories, which is what we talked about before, that people like to engage with. Put that out there and say, hey, look, it has been tough for our industry and for what we're doing. This is what we're really proud of and what we're doing at the moment and some of the impact we've had. It's a really nice way of people going, oh, I didn't know that about you, and just opening a bit of shining a light on what you do. The other thing is then when you have that document, you can then repurpose that into blogs, into articles, into LinkedIn newsletters, social media, all over the place. You can absolutely repurpose your content. So if you've had some really amazing case studies, I'm doing some at the moment for a sales training company, and they've just got the most amazing case studies where people have, in 3 months after doing their training, quadrupling their conversion and all the rest of it. Those are the sorts of things that should be absolutely all over their website, So I think the nice thing about awards is they do make you stop and realize and reflect on what you've done. And you go, oh, we're not telling the world this. We've just discovered through our research that we've got a 82% retention rate and the industry standard's 42%. We should be telling people that, So definitely repurposing it in as many ways as possible. And then it's not just one bite of the cherry, which is the nicest thing. It's not like a once-off media opportunity. You've then got the possibility when they announce finalists to say whether you're a finalist or not. And again, about 90% of people, if they don't get through finalists, don't tell anyone about it. And that's the wrong thing to do. You should be saying, look, we're not a finalist this year, but that's okay. What we've learned through our experience is this, this, and this, and we'll be going for them next year. And you get people, coming along on the journey for you. Same with when the winners are announced. You don't just slink off into the back room if you don't get announced as a winner. You get out there and you share the red carpet. There's a fabulous guy, his name's Matt Alderton, and he started the BX networking. I know we talked about how we're not keen on going out networking. I'll just sit in my office, thank you very much. And he used to have a Subway franchise. And they actually have the BX Awards, which is really cool. They've got their own awards now. But anyway, he had a Subway franchise and he took his team along to the conference and they're all dressed up in their finery and, bow ties and all the rest of it. And he's at the table. They're not up for an award, but he's there anyway. He just wants to, give his team a chance to celebrate and repay them for their hard work. And he grabbed the centerpiece off the table, which was this battery-powered thing, and he got a photograph of him holding this thing and put it up onto social media saying how proud he was of his team and how hard they'd worked that year and how excited he was to be at the conference. Within seconds, he had people congratulating him on their award win. And he's just posing with the centerpiece, So just being associated with awards, just being on that, like she said, running with thoroughbreds, you just are leveling up. So even if you don't win, you should still give an acceptance speech. You should still talk about how proud you are of what you're doing in your team and the impact you're having and so on. You just never know who's watching.
Yeah, that's so true. Now, you've mentioned a couple of mistakes being that, not talking about it until the results are coming out and then not sharing at each stage of the way. Are there any other sort of big mistakes that people make with awards that we should talk about? Because I'm
Oh,
sure
I
that
think
there are.
the big one at the moment is the elephant in the room is AI. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people using AI. Now, we use AI to do the grunt work, to do all the research. When we get like 100 case studies in from a client, I'll put it through AI and go, right, give me the top 8 based on this parameter, and it'll dig through them and find that information for me, which is awesome. But if you are basically taking the questions from an award entry, sticking them into ChatGTP or whatever, and saying, please write me an answer to this, you'll get a very vanilla, very verbose, very flowery, very generic answer that anyone could write. So the judges know that, and we're also awards judges. So we've got to obviously keep our hand in with what's going on in the industry.
Yeah.
And it's very, very difficult to judge an AI written entry particularly well because, number one, you're already going, oh, I've got to read through the verboseness to try and find the answer that I want. But also, you just look the same as the other. I've just looked at somebody else's, and you now look exactly the same. So, use AI, but use it to build the basis of or the foundations, if you like, of your argument. But write in your language, write in your voice, share your unique perspective, use your own words, even if you have to record it, and then give that to the AI, saying, "Please use my words to write this."
Yes.
If you want to, but just be cautious using it in terms of just copy paste. We've absolutely seen award entries where you've still got the prompt at the top. So yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's and just rushing it as well is one of the big mistakes people make. They leave it to the last minute.
Yeah.
And we all love deadlines. I know when I was a production manager working in big advertising agencies, I had a sign on my door that said, I love deadlines. I especially love the whooshing sound they make as they go flying by. We're all deadline driven, and often we'll wait till the deadline's right upon us. But judges again can see if something's been rushed, and it's just missing key points and it's not really being very compelling, then they can pick up on that. So take your time, find the date that it's due in, go back a week from that date to tell you that's the date. That gives you 7 days anyway extra, and then go back a couple of weeks to get yourself ready and pull together all that information. So it really is important that you don't just tell the judges what you've done, you show them. So it's not just, hey, we're awesome, we've got great clients. It's, we've had 20, 30 clients with us for the last 13 years or whatever it is. You need some facts and statements in there.
Yeah, definitely. Telling the story. And I think, when you look at some of the entries, there are questions and it could be easy just to sort of, answer them quite quickly or shortly. But you have to remember that the judges, they don't know you. They don't know your business. So if you don't provide the context without being waffly, but give them what they need to understand your answer. And I think that's something we won quite a lot of awards when I was at Next DC. We put in, we had an awards program that we'd go through each year. And it was just the time that we'd take in the submissions, I think, that probably put us into that finalist and winning spot often, because we would be meticulous. Are we answering every part of the question? Because how awards questions will sometimes have 3 parts to it, and you might go bang and you've sort of answered the first bit, but you've forgotten, well, there were actually 2 other parts to that question. If you haven't met all 3 of them, then you're not going to be getting all of the points for that for that entry, right?
And AI is really good for that as well. You can put that question into AI and go, based on everything I've just given you about our company, what are the 3 things we need to answer, and which ones would you suggest we include? And it'll go and do that research for you, and you can have a whole conversation with it. The thing is, AI will learn, but it will learn very similar language. So depending on who's briefing it, So
Yeah.
it'll come up with a state. The other day, all it kept wanting to put through was the concept of a leaky bucket. Obviously, it had learnt somewhere what a leaky bucket was. So
Oh my
in terms
God.
of business, it's putting all these people in the top of your sales funnel, converting them,
Yeah.
and they fall out the bottom because no one's retaining them, right? So all
Yeah.
of a sudden it had learned, it was like a kid that had learnt a new swear word. You know, it was running around the place going,
Oh my God.
leaky bucket, all over the place. I'm going, stop, this isn't
I
new. This
know.
is really bad.
Oh,
So yeah,
yeah.
again, it's a case of blending and balancing your storytelling, which is your story, your journey, your language, your tone of voice, everything else,
Yes.
with those metrics that matter, that answer the
Yeah.
questions and do it really concisely.
Mm. Gosh, I feel like we've only scratched the surface, and I know that there's so much in here, and you're so knowledgeable about it. Is there anything that you would say, now with all that experience, looking back on the years that you've spent not only entering but also judging, like what is the major learning that you'd love to share, maybe with even your past self? Like, if I could go back in time and give myself this little golden nugget,
Yeah.
this would be what I'd tell myself. What would that be?
Yeah. I think I would have liked to really get to know the judging side of things a lot earlier. So I
Mm.
had started off as an entrant in 2016. I'm trying to remember the first time I was a judge. I think I judged the 2017 Stevie Awards for Women in Business, and that was a real eye opener. But what I've discovered is whenever I go to these awards events, because obviously we go to them as part of our business with our clients, often the judges are there and often they've had a drink or two. So you can go and talk to them and just ask them these little questions, and they will give away the whole judging process. They will tell you what they're looking for and how they go about doing that. So I think if I could have gone back and got a few more judges drunk, no, not quite that bad, but do you know what I mean? I think if I had really investigated that a lot more when we first started, our systems and processes, which are now amazing, would have been that way
Yes.
for a lot longer, because we would have been doing everything based on how do we position this particular client for this particular type of judging that happens? Because every single judging platform is different the way that they do it. Some of them, it's just an online fill out a form. Others, they have a panel of judges and they collate their numbers together and then they decide the winners from there. Some of them don't even talk to each other. It's just individual interviews. Yeah, it's all different. But some of them have them all the entries printed out for them that they read through and mark. Others, it's all online. So I think understanding how the judging is specifically operated for each awards program and doing that earlier would be a way that we probably would have been just servicing our clients a little bit better early on. We had amazing results. We've had incredible, we've written, oh my goodness, I would say nearly 2,000 entries over that time,
Wow.
with a 97% success rate at getting people through to finalists. So we're not bad. So it is, here I am picking, hairs, but I'd like to understand a little bit more. I would have probably just taken a bit more time understanding the process that the individual judges go through, because it just has improved our business no end with what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a good thing to think about, and I think this is definitely for the awards, but you could actually apply this in other places. Thinking about the person who's on the receiving end, like how are they going to engage with what you're saying? Are you giving it to them in bite-sized pieces that's easy to kind of absorb and understand? And if imagine you've got a stack of entries there and you've got to get through them, they're probably skim reading at first to be like, am I going to bother reading this one properly or not? Or is this one straight in the bin? So not in the bin, maybe like it's on the pile of like, oh, maybe not. But like thinking about it like that, it's the same with jobs and recruiters, it's
Absolutely.
like it's just how can you provide something that they can look at straight away and go, this is worth my time. Okay, I'm going to stop here and actually look at this one.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. It's all marketing in general is putting yourself in the shoes of your ideal client, isn't it? And looking at it from their view. And I know it's going to be interesting going forwards because I am talking with a number of people, and I think the future of awards actually is AI judging. Because I can see, some people might think that, but you cut out all the unconscious bias.
Yeah.
It's huge numbers. I mean, when I'm judging the Stevie Awards, I could be doing 80 or even 100 entries over a couple of months. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And the ability to tabulate it all and go, yes, they've answered this question. Yes, they've got impact statements. Yes, it all. Do you know what I mean? You could absolutely create an AI agent that would do all of that and do it very, very well, and then spit out
Yes.
for your judging panel, here's your top 5 or your top 10 to decide on. So you're not removing the judging, you're just enabling AI to do the culling, if you like.
Filter it.
Yeah.
Yeah, culling it. Yeah, exactly. Oh, wow. Yeah, they are absolutely going to be doing that if they're not already. I'd be like, think about the amount of time that's going to save. And, just so they can focus on those ones that they really want to have the discussion about and properly analyze and decide who's getting it. But yes, that is going to be the future, if not already the present. So, Lauren, if people want to reach out and learn a bit more from you, where is the best place for them to do that? How can they hear more about it?
Yeah, I love it. Well, look, I wouldn't be very good at personal branding if I wasn't all over the internet. So you can just search my name and you will find me everywhere. I actually, when I first started building my personal brand, I found another Lauren Clemett. She was also based in Wellington in New Zealand, and she's a real estate agent. And when I discovered that, because I thought my name would be pretty unusual, and it's obviously not, I went, right, my one goal in life is to completely bury the other Lauren Clemett, which I've managed to do through my powers of persuasion with personal branding. So she is up there as well, but you won't find her, you'll find me. But you can reach out to me. We have something called an ambition call, which is a really cool way of just having a quick 20-minute chat with me about what your ambitions are. And I can give you advice on whether indeed you're ready for awards, and which ones you might want to go for and how you might want to think about them. We also have a quiz on our website called the Award Ready Quiz. And you can go and do it for free, and it'll ask you a series of questions, and it'll come up with a report at the end with a guidebook on whether you're a gold, silver or bronze in terms of readiness for awards. And that'll just give you some really good advice and tips on what to do as well.
Amazing. Wow. If awards are not already on your plan and, goals for this year, then hopefully this conversation has really given you an insight into what a powerful marketing and sales tool they can be, because people, as Lauren said at the beginning, they get to know you or hear about you through an award. It's like an endorsement by a completely non-biased entity, because, they're not a client, they're not a customer, they're not in your world, they're somebody else who's really judging the work that you've been doing. So it's a fantastic way to get your name out there. And thank you so much, Lauren, for making time to be here today and sharing that knowledge with us. There's a lot to think about there. And as you said, you obviously can help make that process a lot more simple, because the research sounds like it could be quite intensive once you start diving down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, once you start, we've also got the Audacious Academy, which is basically we've taken our agency IP and turned it into the Netflix of profile building, and you can just binge-worthy modules all in there. You can grab whichever ones you want to help you work out which awards to go for, how to write your entries, how to make sure that you're leveraging them all online. So we've done that as well for people who don't want to use our services. But yeah, absolutely happy to encourage anyone to do it, because people have the most amazing innovations and talents and skills and so on. They're just not being seen, and they deserve it. So, it's not about just fitting in, it's standing out. Go out there and do it.
Yeah, love that. Let's not all fit in, stand out. What a line. Thank you so much. Great one to end on today, and we'll no doubt chat again soon.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.